The early morning fog clung to the narrow streets of Dublin, making the old brick buildings look even colder. On the corner of a quiet street, Maria Santos, a 16-year-old girl from Cebu City, Philippines, adjusted the thin, worn jacket draped over her small frame. Her shoes had holes at the toes, letting in the icy Irish wind. Despite the chill, she walked with careful determination toward the local cafe where she worked before school. Her hands were rough and red from scrubbing tables and mopping floors the night before, but Maria didn't complain. This job, she knew, was her family's lifeline. Maria's mother, exhausted from double shifts at a nearby factory, often told her to keep her head down and stay quiet. But Maria's dreams could not be silenced. In the cramped hostel where they lived, she would sneak into a corner, close the door, and hum softly. Sometimes she sang out loud, letting the notes fill the small, dimly lit room. The thin walls muffled the sound, but in those moments, she felt free, like the streets of Dublin melted away, replaced by the bright, sunlit skies of Cebu City. Passers-by barely noticed her as she walked to work. A few gave sympathetic glances, but most were too caught up in their own mornings. Maria didn't mind. She had a secret inside her that no one could see yet, a voice so haunting, so pure, it could move hearts across the world. She tucked her hair behind her ears, took a deep breath, and whispered to herself, "Today, I'll sing like my dreams depend on it, because they do." Even amidst poverty, cold streets, and endless struggle, Maria carried a spark that no hardship could extinguish, a spark that was about to illuminate the stage of Ireland's biggest talent show. The doors to the audition room of Ireland's biggest talent show swung open, and Maria Santos stepped inside. The fluorescent lights reflected off the polished floor, making the space feel even larger than it was. She hugged her worn jacket tighter around herself and felt her stomach twist into knots. Around her, polished contestants chatted confidently, showing off costumes and rehearsal routines. Maria, barefoot and with nothing but her voice, felt completely out of place. The judges, stern, critical, world-renowned, looked up from their seats. Their expressions were skeptical. One leaned forward and asked with a hint of impatience, "And what brings you here today?" Maria swallowed hard, her voice barely above a whisper, I sing so my family doesn't lose hope. So we can have a better life." The room was quiet for a moment, the kind of silence that presses against the chest. A camera panned in close on her small hands, shaking slightly. Maria took a deep breath, closed her eyes for a heartbeat, and began to sing, "Lovely." The first note was fragile, almost trembling, yet pure and haunting. The judge's eyebrows shot up, and the background chatter dissolved into a thick, heavy silence. Each note carried the weight of her struggles in Dublin, the longing for Cebu City, and the unspoken dreams of a girl born into poverty. As the song built, her voice grew stronger, resonant, and aching with raw emotion. The judges leaned forward, visibly moved. One wiped a tear quickly from the corner of his eye, another pressed both hands against the table, unable to look away. Even the audience, once bustling and restless, sat frozen, captivated. The room wasn't just listening, it was holding its breath, waiting to see if this small, barefoot girl from the streets of Dublin could carry the impossible. And in that moment, Maria's voice wasn't just singing, it was telling her story, loud, proud, and unstoppable. Maria's voice soared, filling the audition room with a haunting, fragile beauty. The song, "Lovely," wrapped around every corner, echoing off the walls. Carrying the weight of her struggles in Dublin and the dreams she carried from Cebu City. Her small frame trembled slightly, but each note came from deep inside, a mixture of hope, pain, and unspoken longing. The judges sat frozen, their usual professional masks crumbling. One gripped the edge of the table so tightly that his knuckles turned white, his eyes fixed on Maria as if he could physically hold the emotion pouring from her. Another covered her mouth, her eyes wide and glistening, trying to stop herself from crying aloud. Even the audience felt it. There was a collective intake of breath, as if everyone in the room suddenly understood the hardships of a life lived on the margins, far from comfort and recognition. As Maria reached the chorus, her voice cracked, but not from weakness. It was the crack of raw honesty, of hardship and longing pressed into music. One judge whispered under his breath, "This isn't just singing, this is survival." Tears slid down their cheeks, streaming uncontrollably now, reflecting the golden light of the stage. The camera captured Maria's own face, glistening with sweat and tears, her eyes wide, almost afraid of the power she held. Every word, every note, resonated with the struggles of countless unseen voices, the poor, the unheard, the dreamers. The judges could no longer contain their emotions. One stood, another reached for her, and a third wiped his tears, whispering, "I've never heard anything like this in my life." By the final verse, the room had transformed. What started as an audition had become a shared human experience. Maria's story, her voice from poverty and hope, had captured the hearts of everyone, turning strangers into witnesses of something extraordinary, beautiful, and painfully real. The final note of Maria's song lingered in the room like a fragile echo. Silence fell, thick, almost unbearable. For a heartbeat, no one moved. The judges, the audience, even the cameras seemed frozen, holding on to the last vibrations of her voice. Then, slowly, one judge's hand hovered over the golden buzzer, trembling with emotion. Another leaned forward, tears streaking her face, while the third pressed both hands to his chest, gasping. And then, boom, the golden buzzer erupted, sending a shower of gold confetti cascading through the air. The light sparkled across Maria's tear-streaked face as she dropped to her knees, overwhelmed. She could hardly breathe. Sobs racked her small frame, mingling with laughter and disbelief. She looked up at the judges, who were already rushing to her side. One hugged her tightly, another held her hands and whispered through tears, "You've changed everything with your voice." The audience erupted into applause, some standing, some wiping tears from their eyes. Cameras zoomed in on Maria, whose eyes shone with a mixture of shock, relief, and pure joy. She could hardly process the moment. This small Filipino girl from Cebu City, living in poverty on the cold streets of Dublin, had just been handed a golden ticket, not just to the next round, but to a future she had only dared to dream about. Her voice, fragile yet unstoppable, had broken through every doubt, every hardship, every barrier. The judges' reactions were raw, unfiltered, and heartfelt, as they clutched each other and Maria, crying openly. "You didn't just sing," one judge said between sobs. "You told your story, and now the world will hear it." In that room, under the dazzling lights and golden confetti, a girl's dream became unstoppable. Poverty, struggle, and distance could no longer hold her back. Maria had arrived, and the world was listening. Backstage, Maria sank onto a small bench, still trembling, her hands clutching the edges of her jacket. Golden confetti stuck to her hair and cheeks, glittering like tiny stars. The room buzzed with excitement, but for Maria, everything had narrowed down to one thought: her family. She pulled out her phone, dialing her mother in Cebu City, her fingers shaking. "Ma," she whispered, her voice catching in tears. "We're going to be okay." Her mother's voice, trembling and full of emotion, broke through the phone. "Maria, my baby, I can't believe it. I'm so proud of you." Maria could hardly speak, sobbing openly, laughter and relief mixing together. The distance between Cebu City and Dublin, between struggle and opportunity, seemed to vanish in that moment. Judges hovered nearby, still crying, still hugging her. "You've shown the world what courage sounds like," one whispered, pressing her hand to Maria's cheek. "Your voice, it's not just singing, it's hope." Maria's eyes glistened as she nodded, realizing that every sacrifice, every long night, every moment of doubt had led to this. Outside the stage, the Dublin streets seemed colder, harsher, but Maria's heart felt light. Her small frame now carried a weight of possibility. From the worn hostel room to the audition stage, from poverty to promise, she had shown that talent and determination could shine even in the darkest moments. That night, the story of a poor Filipino girl from Cebu City in Ireland spread like wildfire. Social media exploded, headlines praised her courage, and viewers around the world shared her performance. Maria realized that her journey was no longer just hers, it was for every dreamer, every child who believed that poverty could not silence them. She looked up, whispering to herself, "This is just the beginning." And for the first time, hope didn't feel fragile, it felt unstoppable.